And thank us all for coming. You know, when Jesus was sending out the disciples to the people, and it is reported when they asked him, if the people ask us for a sign, what do we tell them? Tell them it's a movement and a rest. We were speaking something on this a few weeks ago when we spoke about happiness and unhappiness, two polarities, where we're striving for happiness and never quite attaining it. And we suggested just looking at the other polarity, which is unhappiness within me, and just being in that state of conscious awareness, not to engage or entertain unhappiness, and to leave it at that. It's a movement and a rest, two polarities. When you see one being a teacher or a great teacher, moving among the people vigorously, his or her way of spreading what they see as the good news, this being a movement. And if you see one going into a monastery or whatever, going into silence, it's their way of expressing what they're connecting to within. And it's easy enough for us in the world to see either of the polarities. It's not that easy to see the two simultaneously, the two in one. It's a movement and a rest. You could look at it as us being in the world, being active in the world, and yet being in stillness within us while we're engaged in activity. The stillness is always there. So there is nothing being excluded and nothing being denied when we acknowledge that all is one, all is God, whatever we perceive God to be. There cannot be anything excluded. Otherwise we're slipping into one polarity. So looking at the depth of the message in two simple words, movement and rest, and we're seeing it in our own experience directly in our lives, then whatever is occurring in our lives, we don't have any issue, do we? When we're in the stillness, simultaneously in the movement of whatever we're doing. And we're not attached to the doing. We're doing what's necessary, what needs to be done in our purview, while simultaneously being at rest. Now this seems quite visible when we're here together in the moment as a group. But when we're out there partaking in our particular worlds, we lose it very quickly and very easily, don't we? We crash in a situation, our buttons are pressed, we react rather than responding from the stillness, and we create further disturbance in our lives. And likewise, meditation is a movement and a rest. Even in the stillness of deep inner space, in meditation, there is an awareness of the movement, continuous movement. It's there all the time. And around that deep movement in inner space, there is the movement of mind, of thoughts, circling on the periphery, and some penetrating through, and the thoughts relating to our projected consciousness, to our worlds, to what we have done, what we are doing, and what we fail to do. all these thoughts are just churning out our condition, more of the same thing. That's the peripheral movement, and the movement from deep inner space, which is the movement of commencement, from where it's all arising. And we don't see this on the periphery, because we are totally involved in our worlds. We're forever being pulled out. That's where our living process is, on the periphery. We create a relative stillness on the periphery when we come to meditation. And we open gently, perhaps, to the inner stillness. And whatever happens within only happens according to our level of resistance and attachment to our story, to my particular story on the periphery. Whatever it is, it makes no difference. There are countless stories on the periphery, always there. My story is just one of many. It's the same story, just a different tone, different shade, but the same story. There is no real difference in any of it on the periphery, where we do most of our living and crashing. When the peripheral being comes to meditation, it's coming with a reason, with an intention, an expectation of doing better, of coming into a better place, of improving its lot. That's the expectation. There's nothing right or wrong about that. Just part of our humanness, our human consciousness. But touching the stillness in the center, something happens. And this something, as we come closer to it, myself begins to realize it's alien to what it knows. And it pulls back. So it's always pulling back to the periphery. It's like the gazelle sipping from the pond or from the river filled with crocodiles, very cautiously touching the water, knowing that any moment it might be its end. Metaphorically speaking, that's what it's like touching the center. When the self comes to stillness on the periphery, moving closer to the center. Because the center is dissolution of the self, the dissolving of self. And this you get the references of alchemy, the great fire, the burning. It's just burning of self. And this is entering the vertical in our being. On our living process, we're living on the horizontal, on linear time, on the periphery. We're traveling a journey from birth to death, cradle to the grave, or whatever. That's how we perceive it, which is the truth on the periphery, the physical expression of who we are. But it's not the greater reality of our being. Myself cannot realize this. Myself cannot transcend this condition. No matter how much myself studies theology, philosophies, whatever, no matter how much fasting it does, meditations it does, it's always heading towards one polarity, either a movement or a rest. And this is where we miss continuously. There is no place for myself in the center. And yet we are in two hemispheres at the one time. We're in the inner space and here in the outer space simultaneously according to the measurement of time on the external. There is no time on the inner space. We're entering the timeless of our being. And you mustn't believe that or take that as a truth, because all we can speak of in words is to give an intonation of it. And then whatever occurs in your direct experience is the truth for you. And that's the only place the truth can be known, in your inner space, in your being. And when we spoke the other night about ridding ourselves of unhappiness, it's just giving us an indication of the steps we must take if we have to take any steps out of this dream of myself. Only through negation. Negation is letting go. Letting go of the disturbance within me. Whatever this disturbance is peripheral. It's only part of the situation of my current circumstances. It's passing. All things pass away in the periphery. I cannot come to stillness or come near the center of my being while there is disturbance in me. And how I move on my disturbance is looking at it, just looking at it and seeing it exactly as it is. And in this looking, silent looking, without movement of evaluation, judgment, thought in any way, just looking in stillness and seeing what's arising in me. And in that seeing, the transcendence occurs of that particular situation in my life, whatever it is. The recurrence ceases of that particular situation in my life, whatever it is. And if I continue in this state of attentiveness, of silent looking from the center out, gradually all of the disturbances in my life will cease their occurrence as they fall away. The only reason why disturbances persist in my life is not anything due to the external circumstances, it's due to myself, my attachment to my play, my attachment to my story, to my situation that myself is struggling and believing firmly it can put right. All I can do in this body as a human being is connect to the gratitude for these lungs that are breathing, this heart that is beating life, for this body. Just connect to the gratitude. Because it's not my body, although myself thinks it's my body. It's life. And whoever or whatever I am in the limitation of my consciousness, I am this life. It's a movement and a rest. No issue. Then seeing the disturbance from a state of rest, the body moves and does what's necessary to do, doing our duty, whatever it is, naturally and honestly in our integrity of action, with no expectation or no attachment to an outcome. And this movement from the center outwards to your periphery, to where your world is spinning, churning, elevating and crashing, this stillness from the center to the periphery brings that inner peace to the periphery, brings the calmness after the storm. It's all happening in you, not in anyone else or anything else. It's only happening in you, in the body listening to these words as the body is speaking. It's happening nowhere else in your direct experience. It's arising in you, this life projection, directly. And this becomes very, very clear in the last moment of attentiveness, if you are physically conscious at the moment of physical death. It becomes very, very clear. Like the sayings that one's life flashes before one's eyes. Just the clarity of life. It becomes immediately visible in that last instant when it's been quenched, just like quenching a candle. In the center of stillness, of rest, we come in from the periphery, letting everything go, and stepping into the fire, the dissolving of myself, with all its masks, with all its agendas, with all its notions of having something important to do. Just letting it go. For everything is all right now. Everything is always all right now in the center of my being. Everything is never not all right now from the center of my being. And this is your inner truth. This is your true nature behind or before the projection of myself. And apparently it takes phenomenal swiftness in one's awareness to see this. And we can only see it in stillness, not in movement. The world is movement, trying to come to stillness. Your true nature is absolutely still. You're in the center of all movement. Just looking out, seeing it as it is. No issue in here in the center. It's as simple as that. Anything else in meditation is a play on the periphery. So they'll make believe. Any questions on that? It's true for you in your experience. That's the only place it can be true. Not in what the speaker is saying. The speaker can only reflect it. It's all happening in you. It's your empowerment in your inner being. Not of self. Myself will want this empowerment, even want it to be a better person, or to go out and create other disturbances in the world. Start up other belief structures, or mend the ones it already perceives as not functioning correctly. That's myself. It's very fine, isn't it? It's a very sacred place. So we have to approach it with surrender. Surrender of what? Surrender of myself. With all its agendas, all its disturbances, all its beliefs, the surrender of myself. Coming home to the center. And then God, whatever God is, comes to you. In your being. When we're looking in a mirror, all we're seeing is a reflection. Even words are symbolic. All they can be is a reflection. They're not the reality. The reflection is never the reality. We have lost ourselves in the reflection. What we're doing here is we're coming out of the reflection. We have lost ourselves in the reflection, continuously. It's the world. There's nothing wrong with the world. There's nothing right about the world either. We're not looking at any polarities here. Everything is exactly as it is. The only disturbance, myself. That's the only place to see it. And whatever is looking, in stillness, there is a looking that is not myself. So there is something deeper within me. We cannot put anything on this, but we know it in our direct experience. There is something deeper within me, in that body listening to these words. And that something deeper clearly sees, I am not this. I'm not this disturbance. I'm not this madness going on around me. I'm not any of this. And that is seen from within. And then we can ask ourselves the question, well then, what am I? What is this that is seen within me? Who am I? We have to be very careful here, because myself is immediately in saying I am something. Just stay looking. Perhaps I'm nothing. Absolutely nothing. Can I be nothing? Can I negate all of myself to nothing? Now we can see the periphery, the inner periphery, coming in a little closer. Here is myself. I can split it up into a good self and a bad self, or a higher self and a lower self. Still the periphery. I want this self to be saved. It becomes immediately visible in that last instant when it's been quenched, just like quenching a candle. Two polarities, the movement and the rest. I want this self to be saved. I give myself a Saviour. Jesus obliges. Put him on a cross. He has died for my sins to save me, to save my soul that I have in my little self. Still on the periphery. Still self, trying to find a way through, trying to avoid the unavoidable. When this body dies, old self goes with it, be it higher self or lower self, self-acclaimed self, old self goes with it. Like we talked about going into hospital for an operation, if you're pulled out of a car crash or whatever, and you're put under, you take the ether, the gas or whatever, self is gone, everything is gone. Surgeons might be operating for 2 or 3 hours, and you come back into your consciousness. To you it's just the same moment, isn't it? For anybody who's undergone operations. It's gone. Just to give us an indication of self, whether it's a good self, a bad self, a higher self, a lower self, self with salvation, soul to save, it's gone, all dissolved. Nothing. There is something within me deeper than this. All I can say is, I'm not that. And there is nothing right or wrong about belief structures, but we're coming deeper into the center. Something much deeper than that. I'm just letting go of my outer garments, all of them, coming to stillness. And trusting it, trusting life. That's something that's greater than myself, which is very obvious, even looking outwards. I see the wonder and beauty of life reflecting all around me, through other people, through other creatures, everywhere I look. Call it God if you wish. Everywhere I look, externally. So what is this little story, this personal story of myself? Going on its moments of repentance, going on its novenas and prayers, all searching for its own continuity. All we're saying here is to stay looking, just to stay looking without movement, and see what arises, and trust it. It was easy for the disciples near Jesus, the simple men they were, and for Mary, the beautiful woman she was. But it wasn't easy for them when he suddenly disappeared from among them by the sheer force of the world. This is the reaction of the world. There's nothing right or wrong about it. It just is as it is. Seeing it as it is, and being the joy of life. Myself creates an image of God, even the man Jesus, a suffering image, a terrible infliction we put on the man. Semana Santa in Spain, each city and each parish competing for the presentation of the most gruesomely suffering image. Every Easter for a week coming upon us again. This is the holiness, we see, suffering. The man Jesus didn't suffer, did he? He didn't portray suffering. He spoke vigorously. He dined with the people, drank his wine. He lived in the joy of life, a movement and a rest. And we're only speaking on this because this is part of our conditioning. The interpretation of all these events is part of our conditioning. And in stillness we're coming in through all of that, into the connectedness of your true nature in inner space, where all is one. But I mustn't believe that, because that too would lead me astray. Just stay looking, in stillness, stay looking, and allow it to rise, to well up from within you. And this is nurturing your well-being. Everything that the man Jesus set out to do is the welling up within you, nurturing your well-being. So it's no longer a belief or an interpretation of events. It's no longer some historical account in the past. It's now. See the cross where you have the vertical and you have the horizontal. The horizontal is linear time, where we perceive ourselves to be. Be in the vertical. And where the horizontal and the vertical meet in the center, we could use that symbolically as now, where we are. Always being in the vertical, now. And the horizontal is always passing us by, linear time, just moving across our purview by the nature and way of things. But we have no issue, because we are centered in the vertical. And when this centering arises in you, in stillness, as we do here in meditation, when this centering arises within you, you are in the vertical, and you are in the timeless, you are in the immortality of your true nature, which is not the horizontal, where myself has put Jesus on the cross with all his belief structures and everything else wrapped around it, and pushed him back into time. Always a dead Messiah, always a dead Saviour. And this is waking up. This is the waking up to the immediacy of who and what you are now, in your true nature, your immortality. My garments come and my garments go, perpetually coming and going. I am always here now, whoever, whatever I am, deep in that body, in your inner space, listening to these words or speaking them. The inner stillness. As the ancient Irish bard wrote about the footsteps, Ag teacht sa gimach to him, always coming and always going from me. And in this stillness, I'm coming into my aloneness, the aloneness within me. And this is shrouded by fear. Fear that's rushing me out into relationships, always in search of love and comfort on the periphery. There's always some nice psychiatrist or some nice belief structure out there to comfort me, rushing away from my aloneness. So can we look at that, please? Just my aloneness in that body, in the first instance. In that body, I am completely, totally, absolutely alone in your experience. There's nobody else in there, is there? I am this aloneness. Can I be this aloneness? Can I rest in this aloneness and then partake from there in the movement of the world? Or is the movement that's happening through me, is it my running away driven by the fear of this aloneness. Is the movement myself? When I can see this or catch it, the keys turn within me. You call it the elixir's key of life. It's turned within me. I see it. I see my deeper reality. I step into the fear, step through that burning fire of my aloneness. Right now. Right now. Nothing to do. Nothing to sign. Just ready to die right now to myself. The old I perceive myself to be. Letting it all go. All of it. And coming into the stillness of my true nature. The life that I am, deep within me. Oldest life, deep within me. Can I step into my immortality by letting go of this self right now? And be at rest. From this rest and this center, let movement arise. And this is living the word of the man. It is a movement and a rest. This is coming out of the mirror. When this ignites within us, when this ignites within your being, it sets fire to the periphery. Be in the fire without movement. Be in it. Let the periphery burn. Let it go. Let everything go in the periphery. Just let all of it go. And from here you stand purified in the ashes. And all the issues that's been going out through you in your life starts dissolving. And all the other people and players involved in your issues are given more space to see it clearly as it is. Pressure is gone. It's a stillness and a rest. How easy it is, and yet how difficult for myself. From the stillness I can look at my child, I can look at my spouse, my lover, I can look out at the world without anything arising. No evaluation, no judgment, nothing arising. And if there's nothing arising in me, then whatever is arising external to me has space to dissolve, doesn't it? Has space to move on its own folly, according to its lights, whatever it is. Stillness is the way. Coming back to the rest. So can I let go of my drama, my play, while at the same time moving on the stage of my projection from the stillness? And then I'm responding rightly in the movement from the rest. It's your truth. Nothing to do with the speaker. It's your truth. It's your empowerment. Your true nature. It's not myself. So whatever you do in life, just do it without attachment or condition. Not feeding self. Any questions?
When we with that loneliness, we're feeling self, is that what you said?
I am alone. There is no other in here but I. I am totally and absolutely alone. I in that body. I am alone. I cannot go into it. I am it. Myself is the projected consciousness where the entrapment is. It's on the periphery. I come into alignment with my inner being, with my aloneness. I come in through that. The fear is wrapped around the idea of my aloneness. But there is no one else in there, is there? In the body? How many people are in there? No, there are lots of ideas and images. There's only one life in there, the life in your body. It's the only life known to you in the first instance, isn't it? There is no other life known to you, only that that's in your body. You look out through your eyes, through your body, through your senses. You see other life forms around you, but they are only reflections of the life that's within you. There's only one life in your direct experience, and you are it. So what is saying, I'm coming into this aloneness? So we're seeing the separation of who I think I am, where I am out on the periphery. I've got this idea of myself. I've got this huge story of who I think I am on the periphery. I was born through a womb, pushed out into existence as this body. And it goes back into dust. And all of who I think I am is wrapped up in this projection. We're coming into the stillness here, looking into the aloneness of life in my being in the first instance, and just aligning to this aloneness coming in. But I cannot come in myself because my world is too big. It's like trying to push a camel through the eye of a needle. You know, it is paradoxical, it's an impossibility. So there is a dissolving of self, isn't there? If you have 5 large overcoats and you're trying to get out the door and you cannot fit or squeeze through, you have to take off some of the coats, don't you? So eventually you can squeeze out the opening. Here we're going in. We're just letting go of self. So it's a shedding of self. It's negation. Just looking at the situation in my life, looking at the disturbance that's churning inside me, that's causing me all of this pain and anguish and separation. Just looking at it in stillness, and in the stillness seeing it dissolve. Very gradually, the vision clears. Even physically in darkness, if you walk out of a bright sunny day into a dark room and you're momentarily blinded, you cannot see. But you come into stillness, just rest in the dark room, and gradually the eyes, pupil of the eyes, adjusts to the darkness. And again you begin to see stillness. Instead of being churned by my problem or my issue, just coming to rest. Being churned by the movement of my problem, just coming to rest in the middle of it. Telephones are ringing around me, consternation going on around me, demands coming at me, all these juggling, these balls in the air. Just coming to rest, coming into stillness, breathing out, emptying the lungs, calming down the nervous system, resting in the body. Just coming to rest. The realization that I am life in the first instance. I am life. I alone am this life in the first instance, in my body. Nobody else. And this is taking responsibility, having the ability to respond rightly. For I am life, only I in the body, in the first instance. And all of these issues are peripheral, because they're passing, aren't they? They're not there for everything, or forever. Everything passes away, doesn't it? All things pass away on the periphery. The situations in our lives keep on changing. new issues keep arising, don't they? And I can live in a relative harmony in my life by dealing with the issues calmly. If I become overpowered or overwhelmed by them, then I'm losing my balance, I'm losing my center. And you're struggling on the ground. You can't get back on your feet. So it's all about being centered, putting first things first. And that's what myself continuously misses. Myself will always put second and third things first. The first thing is I am life in this body. In the first instance, I alone am life in this body. Not I, the speaker over here. He's just speaking it, reflecting it. But I in your body. That is life in the first instance. And coming into the stillness of that, and honouring and respecting the stillness of that, and the great gift of this life that I am in this body. Who gives it to me? It's not myself. Myself has no command over it. Because when the body gets the heart attack or whatever, where is the self? Self has no command over the breath. But yet the self is causing all this consternation going on around me, isn't it? With its belief structures, expectations, trying to fix it, trying to mend it, not knowing how to undo the things it has done, while it perceives the things it has done wrongly or rightly. That doesn't change. This self is always churning externally. It's the external content of the world. All mind, projection. Nothing right or wrong about it. It is as it is. But what happens is I'm crashing on it, and the life that's in this body is missing, because it's completely and totally absorbed in the periphery, and all this play, this activity that's going on in my particular story. I'm trying to get it right. In stillness, we're seeing it as it is. But coming into that stillness, we're coming deeper into the deep aloneness within our being. And it's the fear that's surrounding this aloneness that's driving us back out into the projected dream, the projected world. We're terrified of this aloneness, because it's myself, only myself. And we have all these belief structures, all these support mechanisms externally for this. We have society externally for this. And now myself is compromised to society. Nothing right or wrong about that. It is as it is. So we see the necessity for structures supporting the projection, the illusion. And we're not attacking structures here, challenging anything, even belief structures or interpretations of Jesus or anything like that. We're just looking at it as it is and coming into the stillness of my being, coming into my aloneness, into the oneness within me. Being vertical, being at one with your immortality behind this projection, feeling the oneness or connecting to the oneness of all that is God within you. Then whatever you do on the periphery, whatever movement comes out of that, is coming out of the rest. It's coming out of the stillness deep within you. And you're not crashing on the play, you're not in a reactionary state. Are you not still caught up in this mind that's churning it, analysing it, saying, oh, I've got it right now. I'll move from one polarization to another. That'll fix it. That's all the self is doing all the time. He'll go off and do penance on top of a mountain or into a monastery or something. Or he'll go off somewhere else in a different activity. That's only the polarization of self moving from one extreme to another and missing all of the time. It's about equilibrium, balance in the center. Right there, centered in my being. I am life in this body. This is my immortality, from where everything is arising. Even the scientist is beginning to get an inclination of this. The scientific mind, which again is myself, only beginning to get an inclination of it. Still think started some 13 million years ago. Perhaps we made a mistake. Was it 15 million years ago, or a billion years ago, or trillion? Well, no, we don't really know, do we? It's all projected consciousness, all of it. We're seeing everything the wrong way around. But we can't go too far with this. We've got to stay here in the immediacy of the disturbance in my body to see where I am crashing on my little story. And where we're not facing it is where there's disturbance in you right now. Whatever is disturbing you right now is where you're not being true to the situation. The truth is only in the situation in your life. When you're looking at it clearly, from rest, then whatever movement you do, it's a natural movement. If there's a disturbance in me, I'm in the disturbance. I am the disturbance. And the disturbance is trying to fix itself. Goes off and does courses in colleges, universities, or training courses in psychology or whatever, trying to fix itself. Fix more cells it perceives as itself. You see the two hemispheres here? We're looking at two hemispheres in one. The play of the world is in the external, what's going on around us, where our lives are crashing and moving from one situation into another. And then the stillness, the rest within us, the immortality of your being, your true nature, being in the vertical. You can be in two hemispheres at once. When you're not in the vertical, you're just in the horizontal, and you're missing all of the time because you're forever in the past. You're never in the immediacy of life where it is in your body right now. Forever in the past. Even if it might be only a split second behind. Projecting more future, which is past. It'll be all right tomorrow. And the mind churning and churning and churning. See this in your disturbance, in whatever is not at ease in your body, in your being. And that's where it's immediate, that's where your consciousness is moving on it. That's where the wakefulness occurs. It has to be in the immediacy of whatever issue you're looking at in your life. Not in any book or belief or anything like that. If you have to read the Gospels or anything, just read the parables, just read into the parables, taking it in the immediacy of your disturbance, not through some interpretation, some spin that some religious organization puts in it. Which is alright too. All these things go on in the world. But you need to speed up into your immediacy. Your disturbance is the way home, coming into the fire. There's only disturbance there because I'm afraid of facing a reality, keep running away from it. Isn't that the truth in your experience? The only disturbance within you is fear. Fear of seeing it exactly as it is, isn't it? That's the only disturbance within you. Nothing else. When I see it exactly as it is, and when I'm willing to stay in the stillness of that and not move on it, now I'm entering the fire. And all I say is hold the resonance. Just stay with the stillness and let it burn. But my world is crumbling. So be it. Let it crumble. So be it. You are not the world. The world is only a projection, projected consciousness. You are far more than that in your stillness, in the rest that the man is speaking about. Always come back to the stillness. In the middle of activity, in the middle of your crisis, where the pressure is coming heavy on you, come into stillness. Feel the pain of it. Don't be resisting or defending your position. I have a position to defend. All my energy is out here defending this position. Spilling energy. What is this position? Just stay looking at it. It's myself, isn't it? In expectation, in denial, all of these things. Miserably failing to get what it wants, continuously failing to get what it wants. There is no end to the demand within it. Always screaming for satisfaction, not able to find any. Chasing after ideas of happiness, never reaching there. Running after a rainbow while it's been projected through your eyes, isn't it? And yet we believe it's out there. There is an end to it. I can see the end of the rainbow. Off I go running after it, catching my shadow. That's what we're doing, isn't it? Isn't that myself? Perpetually chasing the end of rainbows. Suddenly changing around and saying, oh, I see this sounds good in here, what this speaker is speaking about. I'll chase that. Oh, I say stop chasing, it's another rainbow. What the speaker is speaking about is just another rainbow to the self. Stillness is a movement and a rest. Come into the stillness of your true nature and see it as it is. It's my utter refusal through my fear of this aloneness that's causing me to continuously run out to the periphery to create more of myself, of my little world. All self. Just see it as it is. See where it's rising from. See where your world is rising from. When you see where it's rising, you're not chasing the end of a rainbow or beating your own shadow. Stillness is the way. From there let the movement occur. We're circling this, but we're getting it, aren't we? It's immediate. It's nothing to be remembered. Memory has no part in it. It's immediate in your inner being. And getting it is bringing us into the center. And that's your empowerment. Being centered is your empowerment. And from here you can assist wherever assistance is needed without pushing anything, anywhere. I'm no longer wasting on the periphery of my world. On the horizontal it takes time, or we're asking for time. Just be the aloneness. And see what arises, see what happens. There is no choice here. We're not choosing movement or we're not choosing rest. Two are in one. Shall we come to stillness? It's just letting everything go. We don't have to think about anything. Just knowing that we're here in the doing of what's already done. And just aligning to the sense of gratitude for this window into life in this body. Just connecting to the well-being within me. Letting all things on the periphery go as we come to rest. And letting our attention focus on the sensation of life in the flesh, on the face, on the lips, around the eyes, behind the eyes. Being attentive to the shape of the head. As we move down the body. Letting the tension drop from the shoulders. Just letting it travel down the meridians to the stomach. To the inner fire. Being conscious of the body and the chair. That tingling sensation in the legs and the feet. And the space between the toes. Being attentive to the sensation of the arms and the hands. the energy in the palms, being conscious of the space between the fingers, letting everything go. Remaining in the body with our attentiveness, focusing on the solar plexus, coming down the inner spine into deep inner space. So we travel in through the subtle body before it takes form. Being in the two hemispheres at once. And while staying with the stillness in our deep inner space, get out into the restfulness of the body as we return to the external world of awareness. So it's a movement and a rest. Speaker only suggests that we should return to the rest whenever it comes to our attentiveness during our working week, even in the middle of our activity. And if you have time just to find a quiet place, your place, wherever it is, where you can return to the stillness as often as possible during your working week, putting nothing upon it, but just knowing the fulfillment there is within the activity of meditation and helping you to serve your world rightly. So when you feel tension arising in the body, pause and pull back behind the tension, keeping the fingers open and letting it go. And when the rest returns to your inner being, then moving forward on the situation, whatever it is, and you're attending to it rightly. Be the life that you are in the immediacy of your well-being, and that is gratitude. No life is a song, it's a dance. And here am I myself dissecting the singer to find the song, dissecting the dancer to find the dance. Jesus is not a measurement of suffering. Jesus is a dancer, a singer, in all of us. Myself creates the opposite. No movement, just seeing it. And now I'm awake. Am I not? Looking at it from stillness, getting the key rather than following the pageantry. When I'm just saying in relation to how we congeal in large groups, even in nations, with an idea. You have to come to your own individuality, your own being. And from there you see it, and it's okay. But it's not your shroud, your cloak. Thank us all for listening. Should we come to stillness? And just being conscious of the life in the body, the life that I am, and seeing the play of myself. It's all this movement and activity. Just seeing it without crashing on any of it for the week ahead. Thank us all.